tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We need a circuit breaker to stop this virus now.
No indoor dining, group fitness, or worship services.
More masks in all schools. Whistler Blackcomb shut down. With COVID cases surging, BC brings in sweeping new restrictions. Also,
our public health officials put safety first.
What suspending use of AstraZeneca for people under 55 means for BC's vaccine rollout. And
we continue to investigate the potential motive behind the incident, as well as the suspect's background.
as the community rallies, what investigators are saying about the deadly stabbing rampage in North Vancouver.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with sweeping new COVID-19 restrictions across the province.
BC's skyrocketing case count pushing health officials to send a strong message. Tanya Fletcher is here live with us again tonight. Tanya, lots of new rules that come into effect at midnight, so let's go through them.
Yeah, they take effect at midnight and they'll last for 3 weeks. Here they are. So first of all food and liquor service premises must halt indoor dining. We're talking restaurants, pubs, bars. Patios can remain open and takeout and delivery are still allowed. If you are going to a patio, though, only go with your immediate household or core bubble, though. Also, indoor adult group fitness classes of any kind are paused. One-on-one personal training, though, can continue. The temporary exemption to allow indoor faith services has been canceled. That's what was announced last week. That's been changed now. The limited outdoor religious services are still allowed, though. The mask guidance for schools has tightened as well. Students grade 4 and up are now encouraged to wear them. And Whistler Blackcomb Ski Resort is being shut down. Here's how the mayor of Whistler reacted to that news.
This is devastating, and it's not something that we can take on alone. We will need the continued support of the federal and provincial governments to take on something as significant as this for our community.
So again, Whistler Blackcomb closed until April 19th at least. Now, people can continue to meet outside with up to 10 people, but they do have to be the same 10 people. And the guidance on travel remains the same. Only essential travel is recommended right now.
Okay, that's a lot. So why the sudden change now? What's behind the tighter restrictions? What's the rationale?
Yeah, the new measures are billed as a 3-week circuit breaker to bend the curve back down. It's mainly because of exponential growth in cases, especially significant over the past 10 days. So take a look, just look at the weekend daily case numbers. Over the past few days, we hit 936, that's the highest ever, then 805 new daily cases and 774 respectively over the weekend. Plus, we had 329 new confirmed variants of concern. And the test positivity rate has gone up by 50% in some areas as well. Social interactions, primarily gatherings indoors, continue to be the main driver of transmission.
There's a lot of frustration, especially among younger people, about the restrictions and the restrictions on social connections. And with March break and universities being out of session for a while, we're seeing that lead to augmentation of transmission through places like restaurants and bars and pubs.
She adds not enough people have been vaccinated yet to keep communities safe. But you'll remember that it was on March 17th that Premier John Horgan said BC is on the right track. So how does he explain the province's mixed messaging over the past few weeks?
I was pretty clear, as was Dr. Henry and Minister Dix, that although the light is at the end of the tunnel, we are not there yet. You can review the tape over and over again. We have not been popping champagne corks here. We have been giving hope to people that the hard work of British Columbians in communities and businesses across the province was paying dividends, but we needed to be vigilant.
So that's the rationale behind that dissonance between the increasing caseload and yet we saw some easing restrictions in the past few weeks. And just to put it all into context, BC's caseload is higher today than at the worst point of the second wave between November and January. And the 7-day rolling average of new cases is now at 803 per day. That's the second highest number of the entire pandemic. Mike, Anita.
All right, Tanya Fletcher reporting live tonight. Thanks for the update there. Now back to the restaurants, and of course, many eateries were already struggling to survive during this pandemic.
Now the closure of inside dining is just another big blow. As Zara Premji reports, the new rules have restaurants concerned about their future.
And then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from underneath you.
Deja vu from last year.
It's a constant feeling of being stuck in a never-ending cycle for Nash Mawani, who thought his restaurant was nearly out of the woods, spending the last 9 months trying to recover financially from BC's first closures just a year ago.
We have to keep on going. We can't let our customers down. We just have to survive. We're not going to make money.
While indoor dining is on pause until April 19th, there are still some options.
These locations may remain open for full meal service on patios or for takeout or delivery only.
But for a restaurant without a patio, he'll have to rely on customers to order takeout. And while the patio is open here at Main Street Brewing, it'll sit empty.
Those who only serve snacks or appetizers must close.
For this brewery, serving appies and snacks but no full meal menu, it means it falls under the closure. But one possible loophole for breweries like this one is to get themselves a food truck nearby. Then the patio can remain open.
Letting us know the day of that day we will be closing just doesn't work for anyone. We've got food that spoils. We've got staff that are staffed.
Premier John Horgan says the province is working on aid for locations like Forsyth's, and Vancouver's mayor says on Tuesday he'll bring forward an emergency motion, including expanding patio options and spaces wherever possible, along with other support as needed. But in the meantime, the industry says its hands are tied.
3 weeks can't come quick enough.
I don't mind going through this as long as we are all safe. But at the same time, everybody is sacrificing.
A sacrifice they don't know if they'll be able to come back from this time. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
And soon we're going to have Dr. Sreenath Murthy here to answer your questions about the AstraZeneca vaccine being banned on people under 55. We want to go now to Isabel Regam, who has more on that. This comes after a National Advisory Committee recommends that we stop giving the vaccine to people under 55. Is that right, Isabel?
That's right. The suspension follows reports of rare blood clots in a few vaccinated patients, the majority under the age of 55. Dr. Bonnie Henry says for now, this pause is just a precaution and points to fewer than 30 cases worldwide.
What we do know is that this is very rare, and it is unlikely we will see any cases here in British Columbia or in Canada. But it is also a condition that we have a test for, and there's treatment.
Earlier this month, the province announced a priority group would receive a first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine in April. That includes teachers, childcare staff, grocery store clerks, and first responders. Dr. Henry says that rollout does not change, but those people will now get Pfizer or Moderna for their first shot. That switch was made already today. The BC's Teachers Association hopes this won't lead to a slower rollout.
We're certainly hoping that the vaccination for essential workers, vaccinations for essential workers will go ahead as planned, even if it means a different vaccine is warranted.
And Isabel, last week, thousands of teachers in Surrey started getting vaccinated early with AstraZeneca. Other people have also got it, of course. So what does that mean for them?
Dr. Henry says if it's been more than 20 days since you received the vaccine, there is no concern. If it's been less than 20 days, you're being asked to monitor your symptoms. Let's take a look at a few of those alarming symptoms that include shortness of breath, chest pain, leg swelling, abdominal pain, sudden onset of headaches or blurred vision. If you have any of those symptoms, you're being told to immediately seek medical attention. Now, for now, the suspension is temporary as health officials wait for more data. Dr. Bonnie Henry says we should have an update on the use of AstraZeneca and if there are implications for British Columbians in 2 to 3 days.
Isabel Regam reporting live for us tonight. Thanks, Isabel. Okay, and with so many developments in BC's pandemic response, like I mentioned, we want to give you the chance to put your questions on the new restrictions and on the AstraZeneca vaccine to an expert. Send them in now by calling or emailing us. Dr. Murthy will join us at the bottom of the hour. That's around 6:30 to answer those questions. You can also post your questions in the comment section if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube.
Investigators in North Vancouver say no clear motive has been established in a deadly weekend stabbing spree.
A woman in her 20s was killed, 6 others injured. A 28-year-old man has been charged with second-degree murder.
As Briar Stewart reports tonight, the North Shore community is coming together.
Among the many who've come to this growing memorial, some of the victims from Saturday's rampage. A mask conceals some of Emma Henderson's wounds. The 22-year-old university student was one of those attacked near the library. She's now recovering, and so are 5 others, including a high school teacher and a single mother. A young woman in her 20s was killed in the attack.
And the more that time has passed since, you realize the magnitude of it. And, there's not a member in this community within, 20 blocks that hasn't come to this square in recent days.
Steve Mossop was here Saturday and tried to help the victims. He also saw the accused, 28-year-old Yannick Bandaogu, on the ground.
Show me your head! Show me your head!
After his arrest, he was taken to hospital where he was treated for self-inflicted injuries.
We continue to investigate the potential motive behind the incident, as well as the suspect's background and history in British Columbia.
Bandaogu is of no fixed address and previously lived in Quebec. His criminal record includes convictions for assault with a weapon and assaulting a peace officer in that province. At the time of the attack, he was wanted on warrants there and also in Manitoba. Police are still trying to piece together the attack and what led up to it. None of the victims were connected to the accused.
For me, it's just physically being here and seeing the memorial grow and just taking a moment to think about the victims.
The community has set up a place where residents can speak to grief counselors as many struggle with the trauma that unfolded here. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
A bird strike is being blamed for last year's deadly snowbird crash in Kamloops. Investigators say a small bird was sucked into the jet's engine during takeoff, and that caused a loss of power. The aircraft turned and went into a steep nosedive before hitting the ground in a residential neighborhood. The pilot and his passenger both ejected, but investigators say the aircraft was too low at the time. The pilot, Captain Richard McDougall, was injured. Captain Jennifer Casey, a public affairs officer with the Snowbirds, was killed.
A warning tonight after multiple sex assaults in the North Surrey area. There have been at least 4 incidents that took place between June of last year and mid-February of this year. Police believe there could be more victims and are asking people to come forward. So far, the victims have all been men. The suspect is described as a 6-foot black man in his 30s. He has short black hair, a receding hairline, and a mustache. He reportedly approached victims in parks and parking lots, offering a smoke, and then lured them to his vehicle where the alleged assaults took place. His vehicle is said to be a beige or light brown 4-door sedan. Anyone with information or any victims who have any information who may be potential victims are asked to contact Surrey RCMP Special Victims Unit.
A Surrey woman is calling on the province to cover the cost of an expensive drug she says is necessary for her to live a normal life.
She suffered from chronic migraines and finally found a drug that helps her.
But as Andrea Ross reports, the drug is not yet covered by BC Pharmacare or insurance.
It's so debilitating.
Christina Saul has had migraines since she was 5 years old, pounding headaches that have gotten worse over the years.
Nausea, vomiting. I have a hard time speaking. I can't find words to make sentences properly.
The migraines happened every few days.
Occasionally I will lose my vision on my left side.
The symptoms were so bad she had to drop out of post-secondary education. Then she started a drug called Aimovig.
I barely get any anymore, and if I do, it's usually very manageable.
But there's one problem.
the treatment that works for me is costing me $505 a month. And as a student, that's really expensive, and that's with a 20% discount from the company.
Aimovig is not covered by BC Pharmacare. The Health Ministry says the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance is currently negotiating price with the drug manufacturer. The province says it will make a decision about coverage when that's done, but the review process can take 12 months.
Every drug has different issues associated with it as to why maybe it's not approved yet in BC.
Reasons like cost.
Sometimes these medications are tied up in approval process where that PCPA negotiation has gone positively, but the province's public budget is not sufficient to be able to add on a new drug, and then it ends up getting delayed.
According to Migraine Canada, 4.5 million Canadians suffer from migraines. In BC, it's more than 600,000 people. Advocates say the approval process for migraine drugs needs to be fast-tracked.
We need to try to work together and tighten that gap up and get medications to patients more quickly.
Especially because they've already been approved by Health Canada.
They are making a difference in patients' lives.
That's why Sol is petitioning the government to cover the cost.
It's a really awful feeling to feel like you're kind of stuck when you can't pay for something that you desperately need.
A situation she doesn't want anyone else to experience. Andrea Ross, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, beautiful day today, but it was very windy last night, particularly bad on Vancouver Island, I hear.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I've got some video to show you coming out of the island from this storm that hit most of British Columbia yesterday. Look at the wind damage. You're looking at pictures out of Parksville where this large tree you can see actually fell on a motor home where an elderly couple were inside. Luckily, they escaped uninjured. Pretty shaken up today, though. If that tree had taken more of a direct hit, you can see to cars, many scenes like this across the island this morning with cleanup crews working through Vancouver Island and parts of Metro Vancouver. The winds knocked down trees that led to thousands without power through the afternoon and evening hours. And that was all thanks to a little low pressure system that kept on tracking across the province. We had reports of potential tornado in West Kelowna, pictures of wind gusts knocking off roof shingles right across the Kootenays, and that same storm is now tracking through to Alberta. Let me show you the big satellite picture because high pressure has built in behind it, but that's what's left of our low crossing through Alberta. I'll talk more about that later. Blizzard conditions thanks to that redeveloping storm, so it had quite the punch. Our story today, along with the sunshine, the cool temperatures tonight. I'm going to take you down to an evening that will get close to the freezing mark for parts of Metro Vancouver. I'll talk more about just how cold and how long that'll stick around and the sunshine. Those details coming up shortly.
Okay, Joe, thanks. Talk to you again in a bit. And a moment now to congratulate a couple of our colleagues here at CBC Vancouver. Photojournalist Ben Nelms has won the 2020 General News Photo of the Year Award.
It comes from the News Photographers Association of Canada. The image is of a walk-in confession last year in Vancouver.
Another CBC photographer took home honors, Maggie McPherson, third place in the Spot News category. Ben also placed third in the Picture News Story category for a series of images in our COVID-19 coverage. Congrats to Ben and to Maggie.
Wonderful. If you haven't seen some of their photos, always head to our website. They're taking photos on the daily for our news stories, and they're always very, very good. And a reminder, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem.
CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. The murder trial of a former police officer charged in George Floyd's death is underway in Minneapolis. Just ahead, what the jury saw and heard from witnesses.
Thank you for watching us online during our commercial-free live stream. Well, a group of Calgary area free divers isn't waiting for the spring thaw to plunge deep into local lakes.
In fact, one diver ditches her tank and routinely free dives under at least a foot of ice in the dead of winter.
No, thank you. Our team in Alberta spoke with her about her love of the sport and how serene it can be.
There's something to be said about being under ice. It's fun, and it's something unlike anything I've ever done. If anything, it was like a slap in the face when you get in because it's so cold, but then you somehow get used to it. Free diving. It is diving underwater with no tanks and assisted with nothing at all, just a mask, a suit, and some fins. I started when I was a child. I grew up in Europe. My grandfather taught me before I could walk, really. He would tell me to dive down and go get a little rock or something, and I didn't realize I was free diving until I was much older. So when we do it under ice, it's a different experience. It's not so much for performance, like, oh, how long can I stay under, work on your breath hold, work on your depth training. It's not about that. It's the experience. The water is so cold, it's 1 degree Celsius. You can barely hold your breath. You can't really reach the depths you usually do. Usually Lake Minnewanka, we've done Quarry Lakes, and we've done a couple of little alpine lakes up in the mountains as well. The ice was about 35 centimeters when we did it just a couple of weeks ago. We have the permits from Park. We work with local dive shops to cut the hole. You know, I thought it was going to be scary the first time I did it. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be under ice. That's terrifying. But you're lanyarded in. We're very safe. We have safety at the top. We have scuba divers at the bottom. Extremely safe. And actually, it wasn't scary at all. I think the worst part is getting into the suit and getting out of the suit because you're outside and you're covered in lubricant. But once you're in the water, after, I'd say, 15, 20 minutes, you start to kind of acclimatize and try to relax a little bit, try to meditate, try to work on your breath, and then you go down. And it's quite the experience. We usually go to Tofino, West Coast in the summer. We do some spear fishing as well. It's a little warmer out there, so it's nice. And then as soon as we can get on a plane, Hawaii to train. First of all, we can't really go to the tropics these days.
Good point.
Second of all, it's a different experience. It's actually great for training. Once you get good at diving in cold water, you can then dive in warm water with more ease. And then, you know, we live in Canada, so embrace the cold, I guess.
I mean, yeah, it's different for sure, but I just get cold watching that.
You know me, I don't like being cold at all. So, but it's very cool. I can imagine if you love it, very cool thing to do.
All right, back in just a sec. More news, stay right here.
The trial is underway for former Minneapolis police officer accused of killing George Floyd.
Derek Chauvin is charged with murder. As Susan Ormiston reports, George Floyd's supporters are watching closely as they make emotional pleas for racial justice.
We still Floyd strong, and we still here. So we gonna hold it down for him.
George Floyd's brother Terrence put it plainly.
They say trust the system. They want us to trust the system. Well, this is your chance to show us.
The Floyd family, their attorney, making it clear this trial is about equal justice.
We know if George Floyd was a white American citizen and he suffered this painful, torturous death with a police officer knee on his neck, nobody will be saying this is a hard case.
In opening arguments, prosecutors laid out their case against Derek Chauvin.
That Mr. Chauvin was anything other than innocent.
That the former Minneapolis police officer did not and would not let up.
That he put his knees upon his neck and his back, grinding and crushing him.
But the exact cause of Floyd's death will be intensely argued, defense signaling its strategy that other factors contributed to his death.
The evidence will show that Mr. Floyd died of a cardiac arrhythmia that occurred as a result of hypertension, his coronary disease, the ingestion of methamphetamine and fentanyl.
The trial, lasting possibly a month, is being broadcast live. The jurors, who can't be identified, 8 white men and women, 4 black and 2 multiracial, including alternates, more diverse than the population in the county. The defense warning the jurors.
There is no political or social cause in this courtroom.
But outside, George Floyd's killing has galvanized a movement, demanding change and justice, including here at this courthouse, barricaded, protected by the state's National Guard.
Will send a message what happens in this trial. It will send a message as to what's acceptable police behavior and what's not.
Tonight, another demonstration, peaceful, a consistent rumbling behind this trial.
Police have now identified the person whose death resulted in a murder charge against a doctor in Eastern Ontario. 89-year-old Albert Poitinger of Pointe Claire, Quebec, died in Hawkesbury at District General Hospital last Thursday. Dr. Brian Nadler is charged with first-degree murder. The 35-year-old was an internal medicine specialist at a hospital about 100 kilometers east of Ottawa. Police say they're looking at other suspicious deaths, but they describe this case as a one-off and say the public should not be worried. Nadler graduated from McGill University in 2010 and has worked in Saskatchewan and Nevada. He has been licensed to practice medicine in Ontario for just over a year. His next court appearance is set for April 6th.
Now, shipping traffic is finally moving again through the Suez Canal in Egypt. That enormous container ship that was blocking the crucial trade route for nearly a week has been refloated. It ran aground and became wedged in the canal during a windstorm. The focus now is to get almost 400 other ships through the narrow waterway.
Well, coming up after the break, with new recommendations on administering the AstraZeneca vaccine, Dr. Murthy is here to answer your COVID-19 questions live. Send them our way, and we'll try to get them in and try to keep the questions broad if you can.
Saturday Report with Jackie Perrin.
Well, it's a sign that spring is not as far away as it might feel. Thousands of cherry trees in Vancouver have started to flower, and as Bob Nixon reports, their pretty petals are proving inspirational.
Snow may still cover much of Canada, but in Vancouver, the cherry trees have begun to blossom. And no one is happier than the city's Pink Lady. 2 years ago, Linda Poole borrowed an idea from Japan and founded the Vancouver Cherry Blossom Festival. After all, the city has 36,000 cherry trees, and when they blossom each spring, well, just listen.
They inspire gardeners, they inspire poets and artists and musicians with new composition.
You like your cherry blossom.
I love them, but I'm not alone.
She's right about that. Here's Jessica Tremblay from Burnaby, one of thousands of poets from 36 countries who entered the Cherry Blossom Festival's haiku contest. Haiku, that three-line poetry style also borrowed from Japan.
I think the best haiku reflects those moments that, the here, the now, moments that will not last. And same thing for cherry blossoms.
Tremblay's entry was one of the winners.
Late for work, cherry petals in my hair.
For those 8 words, Tremblay's haiku and the other winners will be displayed on the inside of buses throughout the Vancouver area. Not exactly immortality, but apparently that's also one of the lessons of cherry blossoms.
Because of its ephemeral nature, it's to teach us to celebrate life now because it's also fleeting.
But maybe with a little luck, life can also be as beautiful. Bob Nixon, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is Saturday Report for March 1st. Remember, you can get news on the hour on Newsworld and at any time on our website at cbcnews.ca. I'm Jackie Perrin. Thanks for watching.
Well, with case numbers here in BC reaching the highest ever, the province is now facing sweeping new restrictions to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Greg Rasmussen reports on what a circuit breaker lockdown looks like.
Already quiet, this Vancouver restaurant that relies mainly on indoor dining will be hit hard by new restrictions, the tightest in nearly a year.
For us, it means we're going from about 90 seats to 19, and we'll be laying off about 90% of our staff.
The reason? The 7-day average is now nearly 800 cases per day, and health officials say it's critical to reverse the trend.
A circuit breaker is now required to break the chains of transmission in our province and allow us to safely move forward through this next phase.
She says indoor activities are the biggest threat, so dining inside at restaurants, indoor adult group fitness classes, and in-person religious gatherings will be suspended for at least 3 weeks. BC's Premier points his finger at 20 to 39-year-olds, saying they're not taking the threat seriously enough.
My appeal to you is, do not blow this for the rest of us. Do not blow this for your parents and your neighbors and others who have been working really, really hard, making significant sacrifices.
Another big impact, the immediate shutdown of the province's largest ski area, Whistler Blackcomb. The resort has seen a significant number of cases, and it's also being criticized as a magnet for non-essential travel.
This is devastating, and it's not something that we can take on alone. We will need the continued support of the federal and provincial governments.
For now, dining on patios will still be allowed, but for many businesses and workers, more financial pain. Officials say it's necessary despite the hit. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Vancouver.
And just as Canada's vaccine rollout takes off in earnest, safety concerns have health officials pivoting once again, threatening to slow it down or undermine Canadians' confidence in immunization.
As David Cochran tells us tonight, for some Canadians, including those who've already had a shot, there is now a deeply unsettling feeling.
A pause button so they can stop and investigate means new guidance for people under 55.
There is substantial uncertainty about the benefit of providing AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine to adults under 55 years of age, given the potential risks.
Those potential risks, a rare type of blood clot. No known cases in Canada, but a few dozen reported in Europe, mostly among young women, with some deaths.
We want this vaccine program to be safe. And while we still believe that probably the benefits for all ages outweigh the risks, I'm not comfortable with probably.
Initially pegged at 1 in a million, new data from Germany puts the risk at 1 in 100,000. So Canada is pressing pause until it gets even more data from Europe.
This vaccine has had all the ups and downs. It looks like a roller coaster.
Canada's AstraZeneca guidance has changed before. At first warning nobody over 65 should use it. Later saying it was okay, now saying it's only for 55 and up.
This can be confusing, and especially with this vaccine that's had a lot of, confusion surrounding it.
AstraZeneca says it will work with Health Canada but defends its vaccine. Regulatory authorities have concluded that the benefits significantly outweigh the risks across all adult age groups. Tens of millions of people have now received our vaccine across the globe. That includes about 300,000 Canadians. The recently vaccinated are being told to watch for symptoms,
such as shortness of breath, chest pain, leg swelling, persistent abdominal pain, sudden onset of severe or persistent worsening headaches or blurred vision, and skin bruising, other than at the site of vaccination.
Some European countries stopped using AstraZeneca entirely when blood clots appeared. Most have resumed using it, several with age restrictions. But public confidence in the vaccine has dropped. A significant concern here in Canada, with 1.5 million doses set to arrive on Tuesday. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
And with the AstraZeneca advisory, the concern now turns to Canadians' confidence in the shots.
Mukta Gabrisalesa has more on those who are now all the more hesitant.
This morning, Ontario's health minister went sleeveless to get the AstraZeneca vaccine.
I really encourage everyone to do that.
But later, the premier said if problems pop up with the vaccine, he'd put a stop to it.
I'd rather wait. It means a month or 2 months for Pfizer and Moderna and J&J than roll the dice on this AstraZeneca.
In between came breaking news about the new caution from doctors. It includes that warning to watch for symptoms. That has BC teacher Johanna worried.
Being a woman, 38, so I'm in that category of under 55.
After the first set of NACI guidelines recommended against giving the shot to people over 65, provinces got creative. BC chose to hand it out to people in priority jobs like teachers. There are no reports of those rare blood clot issues in Canada, and that gives this teacher some relief, but she wonders what this means for her second dose. Officials say they're looking at the options.
NACI will review evidence as it emerges to provide advice to public health programs on the potential for completing the vaccine series with other vaccine products.
Now concern about the message. Even before today, Johanna says she already saw hints of vaccine preference.
A lot of teachers even asked if it was possible to choose a vaccine or perhaps delay if it was AstraZeneca.
This doctor says he's worried about the messaging around the vaccine.
Once we get more and more data and get the overall safety of it, I think that we'll have a much better idea. But again, I think we really should look at UK and see 11 million doses and no major safety signal.
Poor timing for uncertainty surrounding one of the vaccines that could put a stop to the rising tide of cases. Mukta Gabrisalesa, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, with all the restrictions in BC and new recommendations around AstraZeneca, we have Dr. Srinivas Murthy live with us again tonight to take your questions. You can email us, call us, or write them in the chat if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube.
Dr. Murthy, thanks for being with us tonight.
Good evening, both.
Okay, let's get right to it. Curtis sent me a message earlier today. He wants to know if you've already gotten one dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, what happens for your second dose? Do you get a different brand or do you still get the AstraZeneca?
Yeah, so that's a very important question, and NACI and the national committees are looking at that exact recommendation right now. There is going to be emerging data from clinical trials in the United Kingdom for that question. There may be a second AstraZeneca dose. There may be a Pfizer or Moderna dose as that second dose. We don't know exactly what the recommendations will be for that yet.
Okay, Tiffany on Twitter wanting to know what symptoms should people who receive the AstraZeneca vaccine be looking for in relation to developing any serious side effects? And a second part of that, when are we in the clear from developing the serious side effects from that vaccine?
Sure, and so Dr. New from the Public Health Agency of Canada gave that list of symptoms. And so it's mostly like a new or very severe headache, leg swelling, really acute shortness of breath. And they say you're in the clear based on the data that's coming out from Europe after about 3 weeks after the vaccine. And so they say 20 days after the vaccine, then you can stop sort of having that in the back of your mind.
Okay, Missy on Facebook wants to know, does the technique used to give an AstraZeneca immunization matter? She's referencing a Danish report that said how it is administered makes a difference with this vaccine.
Yeah, so that report suggested that they were worried about it giving it directly into the bloodstream. It's unlikely that that's a really major contributor to this at all. And so I wouldn't necessarily apply that at this point.
Okay, Flavia on Facebook asking, who's at risk for blood clots if they take the AstraZeneca vaccine? Need some clarity on that?
Yeah, of course. And that's the important question that NACI and the Public Health Agency and everyone's looking at right now. In the very, very rare cases in Europe, and this is what we're all sort of listening to right now. These are...
We knew that.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry there. You can continue.
These are maybe 15 to 20 cases in Europe, and it's all been mostly women under the age of 50. And whether that means that they've been the ones getting the vaccine more often, or whether that's a true risk factor, we can't really say with these very rare events. And so NACI did the precautionary thing by recommending it not to be used in that both male and female across the board less than the age of 55.
Okay, very good. Denise called in, not specifically necessarily about AstraZeneca, but if you had a COVID vaccine more than 2 weeks ago, will there be any leniency for the rules and restrictions we've been talking about?
No.
Yeah, good answer.
Okay, my turn now, I guess. That was a quick one. Heather says, I have a blood disorder that makes my blood thicker, and I take daily baby aspirin. It means I'm more at risk for blood clots. Is it safe for me to have the vaccine from AstraZeneca? I don't know if you can answer that, though, as we don't know her age or anything like that, but I'll let you.
Yeah, I can't answer that question exactly. I think it's important that she has that conversation with her GP to see what her risk factors would be.
Okay, and I know I think the Premier and and Dr. Bonnie Henry talked about this, but Sarah on Facebook asking, does this mean all frontline workers who were scheduled to get the AstraZeneca vaccine will now not be getting a vaccine in the near future?
So yeah, and so the recommendations for the AstraZeneca vaccine are, like everyone said, greater than 55. If you are younger than 55, then other vaccines would likely be rolled out. The exact timescale is, as Dr. Henry said, is going to be pushed back by a period of time because of the lack of access to adequate Pfizer and Moderna supplies, although that's changing in these coming weeks as more and more comes in.
Dr. Murthy, I want to ask you, as a parent, do the variants make you question whether you should be sending your kids back to school?
Obviously, it's a tricky question. At this point, my children are going to school, and their school is having lots of all their friends are there as well. I think as more and more variants emerge that are showing more transmissibility across young people, I think it's important that we all do our part at reducing community-level transmission, because that's what's really going to drive school-based transmission, making sure that the cases in the community at large are brought to as low a rate as possible.
Okay, we do want to ask you about the new or modified restrictions in BC that are starting at midnight tonight. What are your thoughts? A lot of people think perhaps this was long overdue.
Yeah, I think looking at the case counts over the past number of weeks now, with the slow rise and the now fast rise, it follows a curve that's obviously concerning for continued rise. And you would argue that this should have been implemented a few weeks ago rather than today. I'm glad that we're doing things, namely reducing our indoor contact with others, such as in gyms and restaurants, and hopefully it's enough, but we'll see in the coming days and weeks.
Okay, Beth has just sent in a question on Facebook. She asks, are females under 50 more prone to blood clots because many are on birth control pills, some of which are at increased risk of blood clots?
Yeah, of course. And so the question of the risk of blood clots in a very, very rare event. Remember, there's only 15 or 20 cases in the world with millions and millions of doses administered. We can't really say if being on birth control or being of a specific background is going to associate with higher risk or not. And so I can't say the two are linked at all because it's just still so exceedingly rare.
Okay, and you must see some of this where you're at. I mean, as a doctor, concerns about the mental health that all of this is having on people, and the fact that we're seeing our cases skyrocket, now more restrictions and what have you?
Yeah, of course. I think everyone, it's been, I think, over a year since I've been coming on this show, and all of these episodes having been taking a toll on all of us. And I think it's hard, I think. And I think we all need to get outside and take a break. And we all need to enjoy the small things around us and know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and these next couple of months will likely be hard. But after that, with more vaccines and better control of this, we hopefully should be able to get through this.
Well said. We'll all keep trying to get to that next milestone, I guess. Hope that we can ease restrictions at some point soon. Dr. Murthy, thank you so much for being on our show tonight.
Take care, bud.
Well, lockdowns, at-home schooling, and a hard no on meeting up with friends. As hard as the pandemic has been on adults, it's been harder on kids. How is that affecting their mental and physical health? That's next.
16 minutes in front of 7 o'clock, a live look at Whistler tonight. Of course, Whistler Blackcomb shut down under the new public health order by Dr. Bonnie Henry today. It lasts until April 19th. As for the weather, a lovely start to the work week on the South Coast, and we can expect more of the same for the next couple of days. Johanna has details coming next.
Individuals who say that a rabbit is a rabbit is a rabbit, they haven't been to an American Rabbit Breeders Association rabbit show. We have 49 different breeds with hundreds of combinations of color varieties. There's something for everyone.
Johanna Wagstaffe here now with the forecast. You know, my campaign to try to get to Monday changed to Sunday based on our weather patterns. It's picking up steam. Work with me on this.
Oh, yes, this campaign. Yes, we know this one.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yesterday, and here we are. Beautiful, beautiful day today.
Yeah, well, I will probably sign the petition, so keep it circulating. That has been our pattern, though. You're not wrong. For the past few weeks, the back end of the weekend, not looking so good, and then we come out on Monday with gorgeous weather. This will help put things into context, though. I want to show you the wind chills across the country tonight. Check out what's going on in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Minus 19 is what it feels like right now in Regina. That's that Alberta clipper I was talking about earlier that hopped over the Rockies, sort of redeveloped. 8 in through Winnipeg. Temperatures are going to drop dramatically tonight as that cold front tracks eastward, waking up in Winnipeg to wind chills more like -20. So quite the reversals from spring to winter as that front tracks eastward. So there you go, some perspective there. And crews are still trying to clean up a 70-car pileup on the Trans-Canada outside of Calgary. Taking you to our current temperatures, very different story, 9 in through YVR, but I mentioned earlier, temperatures are coming down close to the freezing mark tonight, hanging out around a 1 through tomorrow morning. So that's why a few extra warming centers have been opened up across the south coast. Just unseasonably cool temperatures through tomorrow morning. We should warm up though through our overnights over the next couple of days. We're getting more of a westerly flow and some cloud cover at night. I just wanted to pause you at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. There is a slight chance sort of between 7 and 10 a.m. of some drizzle. We've got some low cloud hanging around, may translate to a gray start to your Tuesday. But as we head into the afternoon, look at that. Clearing skies, a nice mix of sun and cloud across the south coast once again. Just a few more clouds for your Tuesday, but a little warmer too for most of the south coast. The big picture of that high pressure is protecting us for another couple of days. You can see the sunshine right across the interior. Almost everyone getting to share in a bit of a break from the storm for a couple of days. Prince Rupert, that rain will ease for your afternoon. There's that warm up as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. I think we'll actually be back to the blue skies for midweek. It's Thursday. That system will slide down the coast for a few showers. Friday looking good. And then, yes, Mike, get that petition ready. That's all I'm saying for next weekend.
Gathering momentum. Yes, it is.
So I was getting distracted when Mike was throwing to you earlier because I keep looking at your blazer and I'm wondering, it looks like Under the Sea or what is it?
I was inspired by Thank you, Anita. Yes, this isn't my inaugural wear of it, so I'm glad to hear you give it the thumbs up. I was inspired by the ocean for it.
Very nice. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, as difficult as the COVID-19 pandemic has been for most of us, kids have taken a particularly hard hit.
From not being able to play with their friends to struggling with remote learning, there are concerns about their development. As
Philip Lee Chinook explains, there are now worries about the lingering mental and physical effects once the pandemic is over.
Look straight ahead.
This 8-year-old is getting fitted for eye braces, corrective lenses worn at night to slow down the progression of myopia or nearsightedness. It was during this past year that he says his eyesight changed.
I noticed when COVID I had to do online, once I looked at the screen so much, everything seemed so blurry.
His mom is pretty sure it's a byproduct of online schooling and more time spent at home using laptops or tablets.
Because kids, you know, the more they are getting screen time, the less time they're spending doing other things, right? So there are some things you need to do online, but like we would want to see him do more stuff that's outside.
His optometrist says he's noticed a trend among his younger patients, a dramatic progression in myopia over a short period of time, reflected in higher-powered lens prescriptions.
We used to see mild changes, fairly common, but especially kids who's not outdoor, and a lot of them are not, they're increasing, as I say, -1 to -2. Okay, so it's actually scary to us. And of course, it's scary to the parents.
More kids having to wear a pair of these earlier in life have experts concerned that they'll face more serious problems down the road.
So if we have a child that's starting with myopia earlier, maybe at 5 or 6, then their prescription is likely to be higher when the prescription plateaus out and stops changing. And with high prescriptions, there's all sorts of risks of long-term effects, such as cataracts, glaucoma, retinal degeneration that can have a significant impact on vision.
She recommends children see an eye specialist early and often. Some doctors prescribe corrective lenses or special drops that can slow myopia in children, but there are simple solutions too.
First of all, one is get outside, right? So if they have a break, 1 to 1.5 hour outdoor, that's actually, they believe that a lot of study tells us the bright light helps reduce the risk of progression in myopia.
Yet another unforeseen side effect of this pandemic, one that will linger long after it's over. Philip Lee Chinook, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, penmanship isn't what it used to be, what with computers, iPads, smartphones. So why is calligraphy making a comeback? That's coming up next.
You know, it's busy when a shop who has 5 full-time groomers is booking a couple weeks ahead. Between 35 and 40 dogs a day.
Crazy busy. We're normally a really busy shop. We're very fortunate, but we've had a much busier January and February than we ever have before. Last year was super busy.
We just thought, oh, there's no way with this virus, people are losing their jobs, their businesses. There's no way we're going to see us get busier because it's got to be financially difficult for a lot of people out there. But that didn't happen. As soon as people started staying at home, we started seeing all the, we call them COVID dogs or COVID puppies.
I mean, it's a good problem to have. I'm certainly not complaining. In a time where people were losing their jobs and not working, we were all just like nothing had happened.
Grooming can be a very recession-proof business because people will spend money on their pets. And I joke now, oh my God, now we know we're pandemic-proof too.
I don't see it stopping, you know, in the near future. I think summer into fall will be just as busy because we're still a ways away from normalcy with the virus. So I think it'll continue for a while.
When you leave your last appointment, book your next one.
So basically we started this awesome project where we were thinking about working in maker spaces. And so when the opportunity came to build something for infrastructure, I really wanted to build a digital new media lab that was grounded in Indigenous methodologies and principles of collaboration.
So what I love about it is that they're kind of combining traditional Indigenous crafts and making techniques with, you know, more futuristic and higher, I guess, equipment that they could use to create all these their vision. So I just love it. I think it's going to be a really cool space.
There was a huge gap, I think, in what it's offering and what it was needed, you know. So I think it's a really timely thing to have right in the middle of Canada. I've used these media labs and invited to do other residencies, and I think it's really helped me as an individual artist to actually expand my practice and to be engaged with other artists in the same sort of fields that would otherwise not be possible. So I think if just from my perspective, I think this is going to be a fantastic opportunity.
I feel like what makes it so cool is one of its kind in Canada. You know, you get kids more exposed to spaces like universities, and you know, they can see themselves reflected in that. They see Indigenous professors and Indigenous administrators and cultural workers. That's pretty exciting stuff.
A guild dedicated to the art of calligraphy in Calgary is celebrating 40 years of hand lettering.
And as Terry Trembath reports tonight, the ancient art form is seeing a resurgence.
A few members of the Bow Valley Calligraphy Guild are having a rare in-person meeting of the artistic minds. Gail Stevens is a founding member.
Calligraphy gives the impression of Old English calligraphy on something or other, and graphic art and lettering art has come a long way.
What started as a leisure learning course through the city of Calgary has become a hive of 150 members, made up of experienced and passionate calligraphers who are often commissioned to lend their hand to different projects. Valerie Lewis is one of the newest members with 3 years under her nib. She has etched letters onto glass for liquor stores, plastic bags for corporate clients. She says it's more than a hobby group.
I think people are able to see it for more than just lettering on paper or envelope work for weddings, and you know, they see it as an art now.
The Guild is always open to welcoming new members and are showcasing their work at the Calgary Central Library in June to celebrate its 40th anniversary. Terry Trembath, CBC News, Calgary.
That's pretty clever artwork, that's for sure. I don't write very much anymore, but when I have to, I mean write with a pen or a pencil.
I don't know if I've ever seen your writing
Well,
or printing or anything.
It used to be okay. It's dreadful now. I mean, it's just, signing something is about as hard as it gets.
Yeah, I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Exactly.
Hopefully it'll make a comeback.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it for our show tonight. You can always watch our newscasts online anytime at cbc.ca/BC.
Next local news right here, 11 o'clock with Isabel Regem, filling in for Dan Burrett tonight. That's after the National. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.